Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being here with us for the first webinar of our network, the T2R Network, Transformative Regional Resilience. This is Regional Studies Association Research Network. The Regional Studies Association is a global interdisciplinary network for urban and regional research, development, and policy. The RSA supports its members with latest research, funding schemes, networking and publishing opportunities, and spaces to grow research and careers. This webinar will be recorded and will be made available on your research network page, on our research network page. And please, if you don't want to appear and the recording, turn out your camera and your microphone. Well, this is our first network meeting. We welcome everybody. This is the overview of our meeting. At first, we will introduce our research network. Then we will go for a quick overview of definitions and drivers of regional resilience. We will talk about recent developments, ongoing debates, open questions in the theme. We will have a quick Q&A moment, and then we will go to announce future network events and our email list. At first, I'm happy to present our speakers today and the network organizers, which I'm happy to share this network and the partnership to put this on. First, Simone Grabner from the Vienna Institute for International Economic Studies in Austria, and Tasos Kitsos from the Department of Economics, Finance, and Entrepreneurship from Aston University. And finally, myself, I'm Igor. I'm a researcher at the Institute for Applied Economic Research in Brazil. Well, and here we are at the contest of this research network. Well, research regions at this age of polycrisis brings us with many different challenges. We have especially a dual challenge of being resilient, whilst we go to study lots of transitions and the necessity of transitions. So we have to be resilient whilst transforming economy and regions itself. So in these terms, our research network aims to be at the forefront of developing and disseminating research on resilience and regional transformations, considering that economic shocks and structural changes have become increasingly common, making it essential to understand their lasting impacts on regions. So far, however, the traditional focus on short-term resilience analysis may not adequately address the long-term challenges that region faces. And so the need to adapt and diversify regional economics for economists for sustainability and resilience is a pressing concern in the face of evolving global dynamics. Also, economic shocks and structural changes affect regions differently, with urban and regional areas, global north and global south regions facing distinct challenges. So understanding these spatial variations is crucial for tailoring effective policies and strategies to diversify the regions and the geographical context. Also, our network proposes an evolutionary approach on regional resilience and also a multidisciplinary approach, advocating for a novel approach that conceptualizes and to operationalize resilience, with the recognition that this requires different approaches addressing different challenges, which brings us to our objectives. So the primary objective of our Network is to bring to advance knowledge, to understand the regional resilience from a critical and multidisciplinary perspective, fostering collaboration among academics, students, policymakers, and other stakeholders, bridging the gap between theoretical concepts and practical applications in the regional resilience. So it's important to recognize and promote this collaboration among interested researchers and stakeholders, fostering a dedicated community that is focused on advancing regional resilience. And also we intend to inform policy and practice by providing insights from national and local policymakers, planners, and practitioners, and also provide educational opportunities for students and early careers researchers, fostering a next generation of experts in regional resilience. So again, we thank you very much for being here and for being interested in the thematic and our research network. And now I am happy to call Simone Grabner to have the floor. Simone, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Igor. That was a very good introduction already of the network. And now I'm sorry, I have to cover the more boring part maybe. But maybe in resilience, it's not even the boring part, right? Defining the concept. So resilience isn't an economic or geographical concept. It's actually something that originates from systems ecology and then was taken over in social sciences in general, also in psychology and other fields. Within regional science or regional studies, resilience tends to refer to the responsiveness of spatial systems to disruptions. And disruptions can be very diverse, right? There can be sudden shocks, recessions, financial crisis, global competition. You can add pandemics. You can add also very abrupt technological change, even though technological change usually falls more into slow burn stresses, which is the second type of disruptions that regional economies can face. So the slow burn stresses are, for example, resource depletion. That's very acute problem actually, and also technological and structural change. Next slide. So when you take that together, in general, a system is deemed resilient if it is able to resist, recover, or adapt to shocks and stresses. So you can already see this is quite of a broad definition. So on the next slide, we will see there are some different conceptualizations on resilience that can be broadly categorized into three types, even though, as we might hear later on, maybe there will be another type added soon. So the first is the engineering resilience. The dynamic property that it has is a single equilibrium. So this is this standard idea of, I would say the standard mainstream, economic mainstream idea that you have one external shock, the system is impacted, and after the shock wears off, it recovers back to its initial state. So you have the equilibrium, shock, and you return to that equilibrium. And the second type is ecological resilience, which acknowledges multiple equilibria. And the emphasis here is more on resistance and adaptation. So a shock hits a system, it's impacted, and after a while it reaches a new equilibrium. That is still an equilibrium, but it's different from the old one, right? And the last type of resilience is evolutionary resilience, and it focuses more on the dynamic process of regional economic systems, and its emphasis is more on continuous transformation. So as you see, they have different, they focus on different properties and they have different emphasis. So that's why on the next slide, I'm actually, I know that's the, yeah, I jumped ahead in my reasoning. First, now we're seeing that there are many different concepts and definitions of resilience, and that begs the question whether it's actually a fuzzy concept. And there were several critiques on that, and being called a fuzzy concept is not nice, because it means it's difficult to define. It also means it's not very useful, because if you can't define it, it might not be useful. But there are also some that argue that even though it's not always clearly defined, resilience can act as a bridging concept, meaning its flexibility allows to bridge academic research or academic ideas more with practices, issues, and problems on the ground. So connect academia with policy issues. And I would say now that we have quite a bit of resilience research already being done, and we start to see more and more policy initiatives that at least in their name have resilience. So maybe there's a success story to be told soon. And in general, I would like to argue that sure, it might be a bit of a fuzzy concept, but it can also be very useful in a sense that I believe that these different definitions, they actually complement each other. So I initially mentioned that there can be many different types of disruptions, and maybe we need these different definitions for the different types of disruptions. So the engineering resilience, with its focus on the single equilibrium, might be very useful to analyze smaller sudden shocks. Ecological resilience might be useful to analyze more larger sudden shocks that really change the equilibrium properties of a system. And evolutionary resilience might be particularly useful to analyze slow burn stresses and structural change. Exactly, next slide. So when it comes to determinants of resilience, that's another complicated topic. Because what makes a place resilient? There are many, many different factors that influence local economic development and its resilience. So I think this is a nice figure that highlights the complex process, right? So there are certain compositional factors, which are, I think, the factors which are most well researched. These are the economic structure, human capital, and knowledge that are embedded in the region. We understand quite well what they do to resilience. Then we have collective factors such as networks, collaboration networks, knowledge networks, social networks. And lastly, of course, the ominous contextual factors, institutions, social capital, and public policies. Next. So that the compositional factors are those that are most well researched in the field, particularly economic structure. So there's a focus on the role of sectoral diversity, but also more variables that give you more of a qualitative view on what an economy constitutes. So for example, skill relatedness or relatedness in general, which can add as a shock absorber, but also as a container of shocks so that it doesn't continue to spread. And human capital and knowledge is important for resilience because it can enhance adaptive behavior through innovation. Next slide. And then the collective factors already mentioned networks. Networks play an important role for resilience because they can facilitate the generation and diffusion of knowledge, which of course interacts again with the innovation capacity. And there's a little bit of research on that. For example, we know that core periphery structures of networks can be very beneficial to resilience in regions. And lastly, the contextual factors, the kind of factors that makes it very difficult to do quantitative empirical research, right? Because these are institutions, formal and informal institutions, social capital, and policies in a place that influence its resilience. These are exactly kind of factors that might need a more qualitative approach to understand their role. And I think now I would like to give the floor to Tasos, who's going to tell us a little bit more about what's going on in the resilience debate right now.
Thank you very much, Simone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the network. we see very much ourselves as facilitators of the network rather than leaders. So I'm just caveating what you will hear next with the idea that these are kind of loosely our points of view rather than any sort of comprehensive list of what is happening. And we are hoping that there will be a starter of discussion rather than anything else. And it's good to see some familiar names in the group, and it's also very good to see some new names. I'm looking forward to listening both to the Q&A, but things as we take it forward. So in terms of thinking about the recent developments, ongoing debates and questions in the field, I try to think about kind of where we are conceptually, where we are empirically, and the so what. So we have research that is emerging. Where are we in terms of policy, in terms of making it part of the everyday debate? Next slide, please. Yeah, so I think the main thing, at least from in my literature, I would be saying it that way, is at the moment transformative resilience. The idea that what is actually important beyond kind of absorbing a shock and or avoiding it in a sense is given that some of the challenges we are facing are kind of mega trends and global, like the digital, environmental transitions, net zero targets, etc., but also industrial, see trade wars, see declining or changing industries due to AI and so on. The ability of a region not to avoid a shock is probably going close to zero, but what is important probably is the ability of a region to transform in the face of these kind of slow burners, if you want. I think the term has entered kind of the debate since the 2020s, and I think there's kind of more recent understandings because it captures more accurately or more interestingly, if you want, the idea of adaptation as a process, as a long-term kind of idea. Next slide, please. In terms of the empirical research, what I see in my literature again is new measures of resilience. We are talking about more nuanced understandings of going beyond, for example, employment or a gross domestic product or GVA, gross value added measures, into kind of the capacity of places to generate new industries or to generate new firms, or a combination of kind of multidimensional indicators that are coming into play. This is emulated in the new measures of the determinants. So we've seen in the starting points of resilience research, at least in my view, the 2008 crisis, there was like an emphasis on like what is the share of manufacturing, what is kind of crude measures of processes that happen in the regions, and these are being refined as we move forward. There's more data on the tightness or the relationships between sectors in regions. There is also more information about occupations and how they are related to each other and so on. Technological or knowledge diversification, the idea of agency as a measurable variable, let's say, the quality of institutions and so on. And I left innovation at the end because I think, at least in my head at the moment, innovation seems to be on both sides of the equations, quantitative exploration. So you can have innovation as an indicator of resilience, and I'm involved in some of the work that looks into this, but others are doing it as well. And you can have innovation on the right-hand side as an explainer, as a driver of resilience. So it's important to I think going forward to look more into these aspects. And if we go to the next slide. Yes, so in terms of ongoing debates or open questions that I think are kind of relevant in the field, and again, the caveat about my perspective and my kind of literature. One issue is capturing these evolutionary processes in data. My background is quantitative, so this stands out as kind of we are missing the time scale, but also the consistency of the data that will allow us to capture the evolution of kind of transformative resilience in time. Another aspect could be non-linearities. Something I've been working in my head recently is that like some places are opting for specific policies or specific strategies as a kind of the resilience strategy. So imagine that you focus on reducing costs of land or planning or whatever it could be. Is there a case where this becomes a lock-in? So I'm just thinking of different kind of cases where having too much of something may be bad. So there is literature that looks into what is it? The embeddedness of networks. So too embedded a network can turn a region into a locked-in region where they don't kind of interact with others and learn from others and so on. I think we could do more as well in terms of multi-level processes. We have regions are complex systems that are part of, that include individuals, firms. They themselves are part of a national and an international system, and I don't think we've done enough to look at how these are connected. There is also an aspect on policy effectiveness. We have some information, kind of labor market interventions that work, at least in the short run, but I think we need to be more creative, and they need to be more fundamental, I think, as we go forward on how to embed resilience within growth policies that seem to be very much in vogue at the moment. Next slide, please. I think it's my last one. So I think there is very nice work, both qualitative and quantitative, on resilience, and we haven't done much to bring these two together. And I am conscious that academic journals have word limits and so on, but I think it's worth doing more along these lines, trying to reconcile the qualitative and the quantitative explorations. As I mentioned, embedding resilience in growth policies, also embedding resilience and bridging some of the opinion, as Simone was discussing, that like resilience is a bridging concept. So it hopefully will show within the network, but I would like to talk about resilience with social policy, sociologists potentially, like going beyond economics per se, looking into leadership studies and so on. The final point I want to make is the resilience of whom. A lot of the resilience research that we do at the regional level does not yet capture a lot of the distributional aspects of it. So because a region is doing well, we've seen again and again, and we know that from innovation studies, we know that from growth studies and so on, it doesn't mean that like a rising tide lifts all boats, let's say. So it's worth trying to, again, bring together the individual level, the firm level, and the regional level, and see the interactions of these aspects within resilience. I will leave it there because, as I said, the main point is to generate discussion rather than tell you anything very specific. We have, like, I have literature to back most of this stuff, and I'm happy to share if people are interested in it. I'll pass the floor back to Igor now.
Thank you, Tasos, and thank you, Simone. So far, our objective was to bring more questions and challenges, then bring answers. Actually, our role here is to provocate and to questions on what we are intended to build on over the next 2 years. So we have a timeline of what the network is planning to do. But as Tasos highlighted before, our role here is to facilitate and to try to create this network that goes and needs to go beyond the three of us. So again, we thank you very much for being here. I saw many representatives of lots of countries: Austria, Poland, Ghana, UK, US, Wales, India, Portugal, Finland, Italy, Brazil. So now we would like to hear you about questions, considerations on the issues we are raising here, comments and idea. We have this time prepared to this chat with you or expectations. So please, we are eager to hear back from you. I don't know, you can manifest in the chat.
Maybe to jumpstart the conversation, I think the point that Tasos raised about reconciling qualitative and quantitative resilience, explorations of resilience, I find particularly difficult. So I'm a quantitative researcher, let's say by training, but in the recent 2 years, I find myself doing qualitative research, which is really fundamentally different than quantitative. And even though I find the idea very appealing to reconcile these two, the more I learn about qualitative research, the more difficult I see that. So maybe we have somebody that has more experience on that and did mixed method research and can share maybe some experience on that or some thoughts.
Andrea raised her hand. Please, Andrea, go ahead. And
yes, good evening. I hope that you can hear me. Yeah, I would like to pick up especially on this aspect of the mixed methods. I'm taking also the opportunity just to, like in 1 second, to present myself and to thank you for organizing this. First of all, because of the, also the need for recognition, at least in dealing with some topics using a specific language, a specific lexicon, and dealing with some aspects that are so transdisciplinary that sometimes it's not innovation, it's not policy, it's geography, but it's not just economics. So it's nice that this kickoff meeting was organized, and I thank also again the RSA. So my question relates to first of all mixed methods. Because I deal with, I'm trying to analyze the institutional agency of municipalities in an area in Italy. I'm doing a PhD in regional science and economic geography in Gran Sasso Science Institute in L'Aquila. So the problem of mixed methods, of course, is that the qualitative research allows for tapping into the institutional agency among the determinants that you mentioned, but then, of course, it's not very much mixed, also in the sense that data availability at the lower scales, higher resolutions are not available. So I was wondering if this idea of mixed methods maybe could rely more on multidisciplinarity, so on having collaboration from people from, bear with me, but like with people from computer sciences and maybe make the data as open databases, or to make research more accessible also to local institutions. So I was wondering if you had something like this in mind for the future, and also for future plans, maybe suggestions. I take this opportunity also whether you were wondering of having collaboration with other RSA networks, and I'm thinking in particular with about the edge net, peripheries and peripherality, because of course transformative resilience for places that are suffering from adaptive inertia and are locked in, then left behind places comes to mind. So yeah, thank you again for hearing me, for the time, and for organizing this.
Thank you very much, Andrea. And Simone and Tasos, please. Do you want to start?
Well, I really like your ambition. I really appreciate your ambition to also bring in disciplines like computer science or physics, especially when we talk about networks, for example. These are certainly disciplines that can bring in new perspectives. And it's also ambitions maybe that I tried to follow during my PhD until I encountered many problems. Which doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. I think it's very much worthwhile. And if it's achievable to bring in people from different perspectives, then I think it's a framework like this network, because it's more open. It doesn't have to follow certain institutional constraints, and a network is probably the first step to fulfill this ambition. And I think Igor also wanted. No, I think Tasos wanted to also say something when I kind of cut him off.
No, you didn't. I just wanted to reiterate, and I think Igor will be saying more to it later on, that this is very much an agnostic kind of attempt. So any suggestions of things to run, we very much see you as stakeholders and participants of this network. It's a flat hierarchy. There's no it's a flat structure. There's no hierarchy. So by all means, ideas for collaborations. I think the idea to do something with EdgeNet is a very interesting one, to bring in both concerns. And there are different and other networks would be relevant as well. So by all means, and this is why you're holding this kickoff webinar, to just make you essentially aware of this, and as an opportunity, and things you want to see, just let us know, and we can look into what we can put together and what you can organize within this.
Just to add of this, of course, we have lots of other interesting networks. I would mention here Kitsos network on knowledge innovation, Sprint network. We have lots of beyond of the network you mentioned. I think there are lots of spaces to these mutual collaborations within the RSA Research Networks, and to build more on this. But again, as Tasos highlighted, you are also invited to be involved in the network, and to also help to create this network of networks. Marcio Ferreira put a question here in the chat. He asked, in your opinion, what is the best way to assess the resilience of a territory in a transformative way? What kind of measures or methods should be applied?
Very good question.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I don't. Yes, exactly. A very difficult one, and also one without a certain answer, I think. My view would be that you would need something more advanced than its like employment rates or its capacity to generate jobs. If you're talking about transformation, you're talking about the quality of jobs, the kinds of jobs, the the occupational nuance, how good jobs they are, and so on. So it depends a little bit, I think, in terms of what your aims are and what the aims of your stakeholders are. So I'm against the opinion that there's like one way to approach an issue like resilience anyway, because someone looking into institutions would focus on the capacity of agents to direct a net zero or objective, for example, in a region. Someone from a labor market background would focus on what kind of jobs are you generating? Are you generating the jobs of the future or not? And so on. So it's very much depends on the background, the capacities, and everything else. And I don't think it's kind of a straightforward yes or no answer to this. And I like seeing, to be honest, different approaches for very similar kind of topics. So I think there is scope for methodological and kind of conceptual pluralism in this.
I agree. It's not a very satisfying answer, I imagine. It's a lot more satisfying if you just have a set of measures and then you choose one of your liking, let's say, like a set of appropriate measures, and then you choose one of your liking. Here, I think it's more complicated. Like, for example, Tasos mentioned that you have to go beyond this simple just employment growth. But it can be also very useful to just look at employment growth. For example, you can, if we want to answer more the question, the resilience of whom, we can look at employment growth in different kind of occupations, right? You can add all these kind of complexities to it. So yeah, I'm afraid there's not the one answer, but that's also what makes it feel so exciting.
I would just like to add something that we need to I think one important and underdeveloped issue is that we need to rethink some structures of relations within the resilience. Tasos mentioned innovation here, but also I would like to ask the whole economic structure because so far we are thinking economic structure, for example, as a determinant of the regional resilience, but the structure is impacted and changed by shocks, and this structural change needs to be also in I think it's important to be in the discussion how this structure changes with shocks and how these changes affect back the resilience, the non-linearities that Tasos highlighted here. So yeah, it's not a simple question. It brings lots of complexity because when we add these non-linearity things and these layers of complexities, this brings more difficulties in the methodological part. Yeah, it was one of our first discussions on the necessity of the network to try to put this and to build on this, because okay, we have some clear directions on what particularly each of us understand on resilience and on the best way to theoretically understand the impact of shocks and what it means in terms of adjustment, adaptation. But again, this nexus on with the empirical part, it's always tricky. So yeah, we don't have the answers now. We hope at the end of the network we can have more clues and a more direct answer to that question. Other questions, please? So I would add some a question that always brings when we are talking about resilience. It's about resilience from what, and whether the resilience is applied. I'm seeing lots of new. It's becoming more and more fancy word, also not only in academic, but sometimes I always face some questions about the added value of the concept of resilience. So whether resilience is different from general development issues. And many times it seems to me related about nature of the shocks. In the first wave of literature on resilience, we have some of these discussions, but now we are facing long burn processes like the industrializations and climate change. And also there are some people asking about whether resilience is a good term and a good concept to think about positive shocks like innovations and so on. So I would like to hear Simone and Tasos and the audience on these definitions of resilience in terms of the different shocks we may face.
Yes, again, a very relevant question. And it's something that maybe when we do research resilience, we have to go back a bit to the old literature. So like when resilience was first used in regional studies, there were more questions on that. What kind of shock are we even talking about? And is it useful in comparison to just looking at growth? I mean, we already have growth. It's a simple concept. Everybody understands what it's meant. Why do we have to complicate it? But I think it's something very fundamentally different to just grow or to be resilient. Of course, factors that positively impact growth are often also those factors that make a place resilient. So the two do interact empirically, let's say. But when it comes to when you look deeper into the concepts, they're very different. And also when it comes to, for example, policy implications, right? There might be policy implications that are good for resilience that might not be good for growth. For example, to be very resilient, you want to have you want to have a large diversity of sectors in a place, right? To kind of shield yourself in case one sector is impacted by crisis. However, if you're too diverse, you might miss out on some agglomeration economies, like specialization economies that happen within a sector. So this could be a trade-off between growth and resilience. But I'm actually afraid that we have to go to the final part of our webinar now, if I'm not mistaken. Igor, we can't hear you.
There is one comment from Muhammad.
Yeah.
Just if we could quickly address it. My view is that as long as we are clear on what we mean and what we understand on resilience, resilience has the capacity to expand boundaries and to bridge across different aspects. Like there is no reason why we shouldn't aim for environmental and economic resilience. There is no reason why we shouldn't aim for environmental and kind of resilience to digital megatrends in a sense. So I think if anything, these kind of terms allow us to talk about these things across disciplines and across policy spaces. So how it should flow in networks, I would start every meeting with what does it mean to us? What does it mean to the room? Because it's important, and in a sense, this is more or less what we try to do here, to tell you what it means for us, but also like wait to hear from you as well, about how you view it. I think this would enable most useful discussions in policy spaces.
So thank you, Tasos, thank you, Simone. And thank you for the comments and the questions. Well, so as we said before, our aims is to gather together researchers in regional studies, economic geographies, and economics by providing these insights for academic and intellectual growth, but also to build a solid network of like-minded researchers, which eventually might lead to join research projects and to interact here. So we already highlighted this. There's a flat hierarchy here. We are inviting everyone to join the network. And for this, I would like to present you our plan of activities during the next 2 years. So here we are at the kickoff webinar, and we have lots of online, but also in-person opportunities to meet and to enhance our network and to create and to try to create an environment to build on the concept and to develop new approaches and to discuss more and try to have more solid answers on these issues we raised here today. We are happy to introduce the next steps of the network. And the first step is open call for papers during the next RSA annual conference, which will be held in Porto, Portugal. We proposed and we are welcome abstracts for our special session, a special session 8. The link is at the chat. So the theme is economic resilience, uncertainty and policy, lessons learned. So it's our first special session. It will be our first in-person meeting, our first in-person opportunity to meet presentially and to take advantages of this to build on the theme. The aims of this session is to bring together researchers interested in regional resilience, discuss the latest theoretical and empirical research to better understand the formulation of policy at the subnational level. In this part, we would like to highlight that we welcome and invite contributions that focused on the broad theme of new concepts of economic resilience, new measures, new data on transformative regional resilience, qualitative and quantitative empirical evidence of resilience determinants, the long versus the short-term nexus of resilience policies and practices. The abstract deadline for the submissions are in less than a month from today, in 19 December. Also, would like to highlight that we will have inaugural in-person gathering there. So we have a social activity also there. So we'll build lots of time to create and to build our network there. There are travel and accommodation bursaries for selected participants. So this is a good opportunity also to have some support for travel and accommodation there. Also, I would like to highlight that people that want to have bursaries on the fees on the conference, the bursary call is open also until 19 December. You can see more on this on the website of the Regional Studies Association. So we welcome your contributions and your participation there, and we hope to see all of you in Porto. So After that, we planned some very exciting opportunities, 2 more in-person events. We'll have more details on them soon. So next year, we hope to host you here in Brazil for an in-person meeting on perspectives of resilience from the center and for the periphery. And we have also other opportunities, other webinars, special sessions. We planned a professional developed webinar for young scholars and early career researchers until our concluding workshop, which is planned to happen in Vienna in 2026. So but these are our planned activities, but the network dynamics depends also on your involvement. So we invite you to get involved in the network, not first applying for our events, but if you have ideas of projects, activities that you want to build within our network, you are very welcome to join to make more dynamics into the network. So if you are willing to contribute with these activities or new activities, please contact us. Our contact will be at the website of the network. And also, if you want to be up to date on the activities of the network, publications on the theme, and other activities related to regional resilience, please, we invite you to subscribe to our email list. You can use the QR code, but also I will put here the link for this at the chat. And please, so you can contact us and we can create more ties on this on the networks and the next activities. So Simone and Tasos, do you want to add something?
Nothing to add from my side.
I just wanted to say thank you very much. Like, our cards are on the table. We wait to hear from you because you're very interested in listening from the community and building this in tandem with your views as well. So do get in contact, and we'll build it up from there.
So thank you all for the presence here. Thank you very much for the comments, questions. Thank you, Simone and Tasos, for the collaboration and cooperation for building the network. Thank you very much for the RSA staff, Lisa, Alex, Nikki, who are here and are always very helpful. And have you all a good rest of the day, and thank you very much. See you around. I hope to see you at the network activities.